Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Paper Rose Studio's Botanical Memories collection. I also have a new die from Paper Rose, and I thought it would work well with the collection. This is called Bryony Floral Wreath. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a beautiful floral design. I have the 12 by 12 paper collection of the Botanical Memories. It's also available in 6 by 6. One of my favorite things about using Paper Rose's 12 by 12 collection, the back of this front cover, you can either cut out some of those images, or if you flip it over, it's full of cut apart sentiments. And the colors match beautifully with the paper collection. There's also a great variety of sentiments that you can use year round. And off screen, I did go and cut out all of those sentiments. There's also a sheet with lots of cut apart images and sentiments, and I will be using a few of those. At the bottom of the sheet, it has the name of the collection, but if you flip it over on the back side, there's a polka dot strip. So you can cut that piece off, and then you have zero waste with this collection. Some of the designs are on the larger side for making cards, but when you flip it over, there's generally a pattern on the opposite side that does work for cards. If you're a scrapbooker, the entire collection is perfect. There are also two large floral designs, and if you watch my Botanical Blooms video, you may recognize those florals. I believe they are the same design. I used the 6 by 6 size of the Botanical Blooms collection. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I will add a link to my video featuring the Botanical Blooms collection. It's beautiful. Along with the 12 by 12 paper, I also have the Embossed die cut pack. Lots of gorgeous images. And if you've never used Paper Rose's Embossed die cut packs before, I highly recommend them. They have this beautiful glossy embossed detail on all of the images. And they simply pop out, so you don't need to do any fussy cutting. There are 4 A5 sheets in the Embossed die cut pack. The colors and designs match beautifully with the paper collection. If you don't mind fussy cutting, there's also a coordinating cut apart pack. And there are so many images in this set. There are 18 single-sided sheets, and you'll receive 3 of each. The cut-apart packs don't have the embossed detail, but it's still full of beautiful images that work with the paper collection. I think the bird cages are my favorite, and there's a fun variety of different styles and colors. I'll quickly show you the 6 different sheets so you can get an idea of what's included. And I will use a few of the cut apart images on my cards along with some of the embossed die cuts. So there are the 6 different sheets, and now we're back to repeating. If you're interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I will be using some card sketches for inspiration. This first sketch is from Reverse Confetti. It's sketch number 42. And if you are interested in any of the card sketches I use in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. The link is in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. For my first card, I use this light purple, sort of watercolor looking pattern for the background. For the diagonal strip going across the card, use the light gray and white stripe paper. I did cut that strip wider than the card panel. After adhering it onto the card, I simply flipped over the panel, used my scissors, and trimmed off the overhang. I'm layering the pattern paper pieces on some black cardstock. Black works really well with this collection, adds that nice bit of contrast. For the larger rectangle panel, using the pattern paper with the stacked teacups, I love all the beautiful colors. For the narrow strip that goes across the card, using the light bluish teal pattern paper that has some words on it. It's not in English, so I'm not sure what it says. Before I adhere that strip down, I did put 2 small scrap cardstock pieces on the right and left side, just in the areas where it goes off of the teacup pattern paper panel. Next, I'll add a stitch circle die cut, and I use some textured white cardstock for that. After adhering the stitch circle die cut, I put 2 of the embossed die cut images, more of the stacked teacups, and also a little teapot at the very top. For sentiment, I'm using one of the cut-aparts. Hello there. I did cut a fishtail on the very left side, and before adhering it down, I'll put a scrap cardstock piece on the left side where it goes off of the stitched circle die cut. For a final finishing touch, I'll add a small banner in the upper right-hand corner. I have a tiny piece of black cardstock. I'll first cut a fishtail on the bottom, cut the right side in slightly at an angle, flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner of the teacup pattern paper. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The second card features a different sentiment and embossed die cut pieces. For card design number 2, the card sketch is from OWH. This is number 219. This card will be featuring 4 different pattern papers. For the very background, I have the teal with writing, although you'll only see a tiny bit of that. At the bottom of the card, I'm adding a strip of the white and dark gray striped paper. For that larger rectangle panel at the top, I'm using some of the purple watercolor looking paper, and I did layer that on some black cardstock. For the narrow strip that goes across the card, using the teal tone-on-tone polka dot piece. And this is the design that's at the bottom of the 12 by 12 paper. I'll layer the background on some black cardstock, put ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Using Paper Rose's stitch circle die, I cut out one of the cut apart images from the 12 by 12 paper, and I'll layer it on a black circle die cut. Before adhering it on the right side of the card, I will add a scrap cardstock piece above and below where it'll go over that polka dot strip. That way it stays nice and level. And for that scrap cardstock piece, I cut out another circle die cut, just one size smaller. Now I'll put glue on the back and adhere the circle image on the right side of the card. And this circle image is a bit larger than what's indicated on the card sketch. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding some black Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the mini circle style. I'm using the largest size circle and putting 3 of them on the left side of the card. And I decided for this set of cards, I'm not adding a sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 3, the card sketch is from Mojo Monday. This is sketch number 533. For the background of my card, I'm using the pattern paper that has lots of beautiful chandelier images. For this strip on the left side, using more of the teal tone-on-tone pattern with the writing, I'll layer that piece on black cardstock. For the strip that goes across the card, using more of the dark gray and white stripe paper. And I will layer that piece on some black cardstock as well. Before adhering it down, I'll put some of the scrap cardstock pieces on the right and left side, just in the areas where it goes off of the blue tone-on-tone strip. I noticed the black cardstock layer was a little bit too wide. I simply flipped over the panel, used my scissors, and trimmed off that extra bit. Then I'll layer the background piece on some black cardstock. For most of my cardstock layers, I add an additional 1/8 of an inch. For that very background layer, it is an additional 1/4 of an inch. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. For For the image panel, I'm using more white cardstock that has a linen texture finish. I'll layer it on some black cardstock. Before adhering it on the card, I'll add all those scrap cardstock layers. I'll put 2 scrap pieces in the upper right-hand corner and 1 scrap piece in the upper left-hand corner. I like to flip over the panel, run my fingers across it to see if I need to add any more cardstock layers. And at first I just put those 2 in the upper right-hand corner, then decided to add 1 more piece in the upper left-hand corner. Then I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in place. For a sentiment, I'll be stamping it directly onto the white panel. And this probably would have been easier to do before adhering everything on the card. But since I'm using my mini MISTI, I'll be able to stamp it easily. I'm stamping this sentiment just for you, and this is from Paper Rose's Super Day Sentiment Stamp Set. And if you purchase Paper Rose products in the US, this stamp set is on clearance. So don't miss out if it's something you're interested in, and I do have a link in the description box. I did ink up the sentiment several times to get a nice solid impression. And the ink I used is Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink. Now I'll add one of the embossed die cut images. Fancy looking desk with pink flowers and a beautiful chair. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it on the center of the image panel. And for a final finishing touch, I'll add a banner in the upper right hand corner using another scrap piece of black cardstock. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For card design number 4, the card sketch is from Sweet Sunday. This is number 273. I wanted to find a way to use some of the beautiful floral designs, even though they're on the larger size. I selected a card design with a larger image panel. And even with those floral designs cut down, I still think they look beautiful on the card. For the narrow strip behind the floral panel, use more of the dark gray and white stripe paper. For the half circle on the right side of the card, I'm using a light green solid cardstock, and I cut it out using Paper Rose's Stitch Circle die set. Now I'll layer the background piece on some black cardstock. Put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For a sentiment, I'm using another cut apart from the 12 by 12 sheet, this time Thank You. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back. I'll remove the release paper and adhere it in the lower right-hand corner. And I'm adding this sentiment in place of the small circle element that's on the card sketch. For a final finishing touch, adding another small banner using black cardstock. This time I'll put it in the upper left-hand corner of the floral panel. So there is my finished card, and this time I made 3. For one of the cards, the background paper was a little too short, so I did add a wider black cardstock layer above and below that background piece. Now moving on to card design number 5, I selected 3 pattern papers. For the very background, using more of the chandelier design. And I'm adding a wide strip of the dark gray and white stripe paper. This is 2.5 inches by 5.5 inches. I'm also adding 2 strips of the purple polka dot tone-on-tone paper. And both of the strips are 4.5 inches long. I did use the lines on my craft mat to help get the 2 narrow purple strips centered on that gray and white stripe panel. Now I'll put adhesive on the back and add the gray and white panel on the center of the card. Put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. This card will feature an image cut apart and also a sentiment cut apart. One of the 12 by 12 designs has lots of black and white images of women. So I cut out one of them, layered it on some black cardstock so it popped against that background. Next I'll add a sentiment cut apart, You Are the Best. And I did add a scrap piece of cardstock behind the sentiment just for some extra stability. I'll adhere the sentiment right underneath the black and white image. For embellishments, I'm adding more Love from Lizzie peel-offs. This is the mini circle style in the black color. I'll put 3 in the upper left-hand corner and 2 in the lower right-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 4. The cards all feature a different image, different sentiment, and different color strip in the very center of the card. Now moving on to card design number 6. I am using a card sketch for inspiration, but I forgot to pull out the printed sketch. It's Reverse Confetti sketch number 54, and I do have it pictured over on my blog. For the background of my card, using more of the teal tone-on-tone pattern paper with all the words. I'm adding a narrow strip of the purple polka dot paper, putting that in the background. I'm also adding a triangle, and I used the dark gray and white stripe paper. I'll adhere it in the lower left-hand corner. This card features the other beautiful floral design. It's so hard to cut up that beautiful paper, but I really wanted to feature it on a card. I layered it on black cardstock. I'll adhere the floral panel right above that triangle piece, so you'll see maybe 1/4 of an inch on the left and below the floral image panel. I'll be adding one of the sentiment cut-aparts just because. I did cut a fishtail on the right side, put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back. I'll remove the release paper and adhere this sentiment just slightly below that purple polka dot strip. Then for a final finishing touch, I'm adding 2 circle peel-offs in black in the upper right-hand corner, and I use the medium-sized circle. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 3. And even though I used the same floral pattern paper, all 3 cards have different floral images. Now moving on to card design number 7. I used the purple watercolor looking pattern paper, and I cut it out using Paper Rose's stitched rectangle die. About 1/2 inch up from the bottom, I'm adding a strip of the peach polka dot pattern paper, and I did put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back. I'll layer the background piece on some purple cardstock. I'm adding ATG tape on the back and also glue along that stitched edge. I want to make sure it lays nice and flat. Then I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Next, I'll add one of the sentiment cut-aparts. Thank you so very much. And I did put a piece of cardstock on the back of the sentiment just to give it a little more dimension. This card will be featuring the beautiful floral wreath. I cut it out from white cardstock, and I also cut out just the floral section from a darker purple cardstock. I kept all of those pieces together using some of Scrapbook.com's mint tape. Has a tacky finish on it. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back of the floral area of the die cut, and I'll be inlaying just the flowers using that dark purple cardstock. I didn't completely cover those floral areas with the double-sided adhesive tape, but I have enough on there to hold all those tiny pieces in place. Just one at a time, I'll add each piece, just like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. I'll also be adding one of the birdcage cut-apart images. This beautiful pink flowers and a purple bird. I'll remove the release paper from the double-sided adhesive tape, then put glue on the back of the die cut. So I'll make sure to add glue in any areas behind that flower. That way everything will lay nice and flat. Now I'll adhere the wreath onto the card, and part of the foliage will sit on top of the sentiment. Now before the glue dries, I'm tucking the birdhouse underneath, so it's right behind some of the flowers, but I'll make sure the bird's tail sits in front of the foliage pieces. I'll do a little bit of adjustment until I'm happy with the placement. For embellishments, I'm using Paper Rose's Clear Crystal Mix. Pour a small amount in a wooden bowl, that way it's easier to find the different sizes. I'm adding 3 of the crystals in the upper left-hand corner and 2 above the sentiment on the right side. And I'm using an assortment of different size crystals. I'll first add a small drop of Barely Art glue. Pick up the crystals using Scrapbook.com's Craft Pro Pick tool, the wax tip end, then press the crystals in place. So there is my finished card, and this time I made 2 using this design. I love how this turned out. The floral wreath is so pretty. Now moving on to my final card design, number 8. I have some light green cardstock, and I've already embossed it using Paper Rose's Simple Dot 3D embossing folder. This is a great design. You can never have too many polka dots. I'll be using the deboss side. I'm adding 2 strips of pattern paper. The larger piece is the dark gray and white stripe. And in the center, I'm adding some of the floral design. I put ATG tape on the back, and I was adding the stripe panel on the background, and then I remembered I need to layer it on some black cardstock, otherwise it really won't pop against the background. Luckily, I was able to remove it. Now I'll layer that piece on the black cardstock, put adhesive on the back, and adhere it on the card about an inch up from the bottom. So I'm leaving a larger area at the top of the card. Now I'll layer the background piece on black cardstock. I'm using ATG tape and also glue since this is an embossed piece. I want to make sure it stays adhered. Now I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. This card will feature another birdhouse cut apart image. I'll be adding it on a stitch circle die cut, and I use some white shimmer cardstock for the circle. So it has this beautiful pearlescent finish. I'll adhere the circle die cut down first. Then I'll put glue on the back of the cut apart and adhere it in the center of the circle. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding a black banner, and I've already gone ahead and cut it out. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the upper left-hand corner. And for this set of cards, I also decided to leave off a sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I made 3 using this design. Now here's another look at the 21 cards I made using Paper Rose Studios Botanical Memories collection. I used the 12 by 12 size. It's also available in 6 by 6. And I also had the coordinating embossed die cuts and coordinating cut apart pack. This is a beautiful collection. I love the colors and fun designs. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. Paper Rose is located in Australia, and they do ship their products internationally, but you can also purchase them here in the US, and I have links for both locations listed below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.